James, we have a lot of terrific questions this week. As always, we say this is our favorite segment. We better say it's our second favorite today after Mary Matalin and Judy Woodruff. But the first is from a Blair in Denton, Texas, who wants to ask you, how should the Democratic Party address the leftist woke faction going into 2021? And is this a foreshadowing of real problems for the party?
It's a question that is on a lot of people's mind. The reality is, on its best day, and that assumes that we win 2 seats in Georgia, the party cannot be any more woke than Joe Manchin. Right? And so the first thing we need to do with the woke faction of the party is give them a calculator or just do some basic arithmetic. And I think that it is starting to catch on. Now they're starting to Ilhan Omar is attacking AOC, and they're fighting among themselves because they really don't have very much power. And they'll have to get used to get way more attention than they get power. And you and I have discussed this forever. They never win a seat anywhere that doesn't have a Cook PVI of plus D30.
Right.
So what they need to do is go before they want to burst out on the national scene, or before the press. The press gives them outside attention to their influence. And the truth of the matter is they have very, very, very little influence. And on their best day, they better try to wake Joe Manchin up, because that's as woke as we're going to get.
Yeah. The next question comes from Jeff in Clarksburg, West Virginia, who notes that in a very short period of time, West Virginia has gone from super majorities for Democrats in their legislature to Republicans with no turnaround in sight. I would remind our listeners, in 1988, that wasn't that long ago, Virginia voted overwhelmingly for Michael Dukakis, not exactly a cultural conservative. And up until 10 years ago, their 2 senators were Jay Rockefeller, one of the most effective progressive lawmakers in the Senate, and Robert C. Byrd, who in his later years was a real liberal. But the cultural issues have turned the state around. Jeff wants to know if Democrats has to go back to a meat and potatoes to appeal to some of those voters. They got to do something, because I don't see any prospect, James, for West Virginia turning back blue for a long, long time.
I agree with you, and it's some of the cultural arrogance of some Democrats has just not really played well in West Virginia. But I mean, it's deep red, and it's not going to change for the foreseeable future. But just thank God we got Senator Manchin there.
That's right. I mean, he's good, and he's the best you can do there. James, I love these letters from Australia and other places, and Darren and Danielle from Sydney. Right now, this may shock some of our listeners. I'm just going to quote them. This is the way Australians talk. Why do Republicans never seem to pay a price for their political fuckery these days, but Democrats are crucified in the House for things that ultimately the Senate is responsible for? It's so frustrating. This is from 5,000 miles away.
I think it's more than 5, but at any rate, it's far.
California, right?
That's exactly the conversation that you and I have every day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's paid no price. I mean, they paid no price. It started in 2000 with Bush v. Gore, and they've come to realize it doesn't matter. We can do whatever we want, and they're right. And Mitch McConnell, look at Merrick Garland. They didn't pay any price. And they just ruthlessly exercise power, and their people are totally fine with that. The truth of the matter is, if Democrats lied like that, they just wouldn't stand for it. It's just 2 different cultures.
Hey, thanks for listening to Politics War Room with James Carville, and I'm Al Hunt. Remember to email your questions to politicswarroom@gmail.com or tweet them for next week's show at Politicon. Thank you for subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen. Please rate the show with a 5-star review. We'll be back next week with another show as we continue our war room planning for 2021. And I want to wish you a very Merry Christmas or Happy Holiday, and be safe.